Thank you so much to Squarespace, the lovely sponsor of this video and the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence for your business. Hello and welcome to another sketchbook session. So I have noticed that a couple of you guys, or I guess a bunch of people at this point, have asked me to put together a Pinterest board and include the reference photos that I use in these sketchbook sessions for everyone to see, so that whoever wants to follow along and draw the same stuff, you can go ahead and do that. And the reason why I didn't do that earlier is because I didn't realize that Pinterest actually has a history thing where you can access all the pins that you viewed, and somebody brought that to my attention. Thank you for that. And I have put together the Pinterest board, including all the photos that I've used, all the ones that I remembered anyways, and you can find the link to that Pinterest board in the description of this video. So if you want to grab your sketchbook and follow along and draw some of the same stuff, you can go ahead and do that now. I wanted to talk to you guys about some recent issues that I've been having with my commitment to my project, which is Gloaming Veil. To those of you who don't know, it's this comic that I've been working on developing forever. And to those of you who are here, I'm sure you're already sick of hearing all the various excuses that have come up over the years for me putting it off continuously. And yeah, I guess I have at this point come to yet another peak of frustration, I guess, with my lack of progress. Even though I do work on it, like I mentioned, now and then, I always feel like it's just not enough, because that is the case. It's definitely not enough. I don't work on it. I don't put enough time into it in order to move like at a reasonable pace, which is why I still haven't been able to get started on the production yet. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of chat with you guys about some of the things that I have realized when I was thinking about it recently. Something that I never really put too much thought into, I guess, is the fact that I do have kind of like a residual fear of failure lingering around after the last comic project that I was involved with, which was a graphic novel. Obviously, the situation there was completely different. It was not my own material. It was something that was more like a contract job. I mean, it was literally a contract job. And as much as I did love the character designs that I did for that story, and I did like the story itself, I really liked the world building, or like the world, I guess, that it took place in. Anyways, long story short, I don't think it was particularly successful as far as like comic graphic novel releases go. And this was really also evident by the way that the publisher handled it. I think they pretty much, I don't know, didn't think that it was going to be very successful. So I didn't see any advertising or any sort of hype at all being put towards it. So all in all, the point I'm trying to make is that it more or less flopped. Like, I do understand that there are definitely people who liked it and enjoyed it, and I'm very happy about that. But I think just the stress of how much work it was and how difficult it was to get to the finish line, and how just grueling the whole process was, only to see it kind of like flicker out pretty much instantly as soon as it came out, was just, I think up until now, I didn't realize that that has left somewhat of a residual fear for me. But yeah, I mean, obviously I thought about it, and like I said, it's a completely different situation, and I really have to avoid thinking about it in those terms and understand that this is a completely different project that I'm working on now. I have more control over it, but that's another thing. Like, more control over it just means more responsibility, and all the responsibility is basically on me, which is also the rest of the pressure that I feel. But yes, I obviously don't think those are very serious concerns. It's just some stuff that gets in the way that I need to work through quickly in order to stop being bogged down on it by it, because yeah, it's like a small thing that is more or less subconscious that just keeps me from fully committing, and I keep basically diverting my attention to other things. So I thought about it a lot, and I do think I have a more solid plan, which I will tell you guys about momentarily. But before I get to that, I'm just going to take a quick minute to tell you about the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. If you're thinking of making a portfolio site or opening a shop for your small business, or both, Squarespace is the best platform for you. Squarespace has a built-in e-commerce option, and they even have other features like members areas or scheduling, all of which are super useful for your small business no matter what kind of work you do. I use Squarespace to host my portfolio website and as the main centralized hub to link all of my social media together in one place. It is super easy to integrate my YouTube videos and my Instagram feed right into the main page, and I can easily add all the social media links I want to include on the sidebar menu. Managing my portfolio galleries has never been easier with Squarespace as well, when I can set up an organized navigation system very quickly and add other elements to each page using the built-in editor. All these things are super handy, and I highly recommend you try out this website engine. If you don't have a portfolio website yet, you can get started by visiting squarespace.com and design and experiment with your own website free of charge. Once you're ready to make it public and launch it, you can head over to squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart and get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And now back to the video. Just wanted to say that I'm really glad that this channel has sponsors. It's one of the things that make it possible for me to stay afloat, which is really great. And yeah, so I was gonna tell you guys about my solid plan going forward. So by solid plan, I basically mean like I do have a lot of lists, a lot of tasks that I have to do in relation with the comic, and I do feel like it's relatively organized. But the one thing that I've been putting off for a very long time was starting a Patreon, and I think the best thing for me to do, I have come to the conclusion that I'm literally going to just launch it next week. My current goal date deadline is February 1st, and I understand that like Patreon is a slow burn anyways, and I can't expect like an explosive start, so it's best for me to just start it as soon as possible. And one of the biggest reasons why I want to start it is because I think it will really help me on the accountability side of things, because one of the biggest reasons why it's possible for me to continually like shift things around and divert my attention to other deadlines that seem to be more pressing is mostly because there is no accountability whatsoever for me outside of myself when it comes to the comic project. And that's the biggest reason why I can, shift the deadlines as much as I want to without feeling too terrible about it. I mean, obviously I have a baseline terrible feeling about the fact that I haven't started it yet. That pretty much doesn't go away, but generally speaking, I think right now it is too easy for me to just keep pushing those deadlines further and further away. And I think that once I start a Patreon and start publicizing my goals and my tasks, like when I say tasks, I mean like which say visual development tasks or character designs or specific illustrations that I want to work on. I think if I make that kind of stuff public to hopefully some of you guys who care about this project and want to see me get it done, I think it'll actually help motivate me a lot, because at the end of the day, sometimes I do feel like I work in a vacuum where I kind of get bogged down by the fact that there's nobody else to hold me accountable or to even like chat with when it comes to this project. And that also brings me to Discord. Discord is something that I've actually never used before for this purpose. I know many friends of mine have a Discord server that's attached to their Patreon, and I've heard so many good things, and honestly this sounds like a perfect community building type of situation that I've been looking for many years. I just obviously haven't gotten around to making a Discord server yet, and it was mostly attached to the fact that I haven't had an active Patreon in a really long time. Maybe there are a couple of you guys that may be confused, because if you look me up on Patreon, I do actually have one, but unfortunately I have not been using it at all in the past few years. It's been just completely dormant, and that is yet another reason why I was putting off the task of revamping it, because I'm not 100% sure how to go about doing that. I was thinking about it, and I guess the two options are either I have to just like change the current one that already exists, so delete a bunch of tiers, like refigure, like just change all the descriptions and whatnot, or I can just make one from scratch so that it's a completely new account that's fresh. One of the reasons why I wasn't sure how to proceed is actually because despite the fact that I have not been active there at all for the past few years, there are still a few patrons there who, bless their hearts, hopefully just forgot about it. Obviously I don't charge anybody at all once it's inactive, but yeah, they're still hanging in there. And once in a blue moon I get an email with a new patron, and it honestly just makes me so sad, because I don't know, I guess I should have just closed it or something when I decided to go on a hiatus. But yeah, the reason why I didn't do that is because I didn't actually plan to stop using it so completely. I was initially going to take just like a month or so off and then come back to it, but it ended up just being a long hiatus. So here we are now. Actually, I would love to hear something from you guys about this specifically. Like, do you think I should just start a new account, like a completely new account? I don't know, I'm still thinking about it, because I'm not 100% sure what happens once you say delete a tier. I think it just I guess it just boots people out that are pledged. It just seems like a weird thing to do. I guess one thing that I can think of that's a possible solution is to just put together a message and let everyone know what's happening and then kick them. But then if I delete a pledge, that means they're no longer pledged. I don't even know if they would still have access to content related to my Patreon. So that's kind of like a technical question mark for me. I'm not sure what would happen, but really though, I am talking about 12 people here, so it's not like a huge crowd, so maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Yeah, sometimes, as you can see, I tend to really overthink things. Like, a good example of that is another small reason why I have not been able to restart the Patreon up until this point is that I just really wanted to make a new banner that has my glowing veil characters, and the irony is that my current banner on my Patreon that's completely inactive is actually in fact glowing veil characters. So really, I don't even need to change that at all. In fact, I still even like that drawing, even though it's very old. I believe I did it several years ago when I was still in college and when I just started Patreon. Actually, this was right around the time when Patreon just first became a thing. Nobody was even using it yet. I'm one of those people. I seem to have this trend where something new will come out and then I will use it immediately, but I jump on it too soon while it's still uncharted waters, and then I get burnt out and I kind of leave it, and then it picks up steam and everybody else starts using it, and I'm like, well, I should have just waited until people figured out how to use this thing properly. But I digress. So yeah, I wanted to let you guys know about this because I, again, want to hold myself accountable, and I will go through with this. It's a solid plan. And once I have the Patreon set up, actually, quick thing, I am planning to just make it as simple as possible to start. So I will have just one simple tier that will include early access and just access to, I guess, a secret feed with like sketches, work in progress, maybe some snippets of the script. There are a million things that I could probably share with you guys even right now that I just have that I've never really posted about, so that would be exciting. And also, yes, it'll force me to put more thought and time into the project so I can finally fully just shift my focus to it. And speaking of shifting focus, so as much as I was really enjoying doing all of these quick sketchbook pages that are pretty random and just have like some sort of fashion inspiration thing going on, I do think I also want to shift these so that they're at least kind of relevant to Gloaming Veil. I haven't exactly figured out how to do that yet, but I will figure it out with some time. And like I mentioned in my last video, I'm also planning to do a bit of a shift towards digital art as well, because I really prefer digital art for visual development since it offers much faster solutions when it comes to tweaking little things and moving things around, like free transform and whatnot. Yeah, I think I am, dependent on that to a certain extent, at least when it comes to efficiency, because the last thing I want is to just like keep redrawing the same thing over and over again. It's a waste of time. So I want to just embrace those tools and use them to my advantage. And before I finish this video, the last thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is this issue that I've been dealing with the past couple of weeks, where I am not very happy with my art. When I look at my recent feed, especially my recent feed, but just even more broadly, just the stuff that I draw, for the most part, I just don't like it right now. And I know that it's totally temporary because, it's a phase. I've had this happen before. It's definitely nothing new, and typically it passes with some time. But usually how I decide to deal with this specific issue, where I suddenly feel a distinct lack of skill or like lack of polish, or something is missing in my art. I think for the most part what's missing in it for me is it's been just sort of meandering lately. I guess I haven't finished a whole lot of personal pieces in some time as well. Even though I did that one Christmas thing recently, I actually really don't like that painting. Every time I look back on it, there's something about it that really bothers me, and it's always something new. And as far as I can tell, like, if I had to really put my finger on it, just stylistically, I don't like the way that I rendered it, and it doesn't reflect the type of artwork that I want to see myself make. I guess that's the best way that I can put it. And yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to let you guys know about this is that it's something that will always crop up no matter how many years go by. And I think it's usually a really good point to use as a jumpstart to doing some studies and actually focusing more specifically on things that need to be improved. Because when I look back, there are certain things in my art that I do still like, and that allows me to pretty much figure out the direction that I want to take and what I want to do less of versus what I want to do more of. And like one of the things that I do really like is the character lineup that I did a while back of like that was the one split second that I managed to focus on Gloaming Veil visual development, where I was going over the first chapter, and my first task was just to design this lineup of characters that are Noelle's friends that I know that are going to be reoccurring. And so I took the time to do that, and I actually really like the result of that, because I looked at a lot of artists that I like, and I really looked at my own art as well with a very critical eye, and I kind of wanted to make some changes. I wanted to lean in more to what I consider to be my strengths, which is like the line art aspect of things, etc. I mean, I could go on and on, but it was kind of like a very coordinated and focused effort on that character lineup, and I also did it relatively quickly, and I still like the result, even though there's some things I could have done better at this point. I think overall, regardless, I do really like how that lineup turned out, and I want to make more art digitally going forward that has a similar look, because I think picking a more solid direction obviously is the first step towards making test pages and making test panels, and just to see what kind of stylistic like what kind of level of finish I want to go for, etc., for the actual pages. And I think at that point I will feel a lot more confident about getting into the production stages of this project, because right now I do feel like I'm kind of just floating about without any specific and concrete art direction, I guess. And I think part of that is because I switch back and forth a lot between mediums, and because I often have to push my style into areas that are not entirely familiar to me when it comes to client work, and that takes its toll when it's done for a long period of time. This is something that I've also spoken to you guys about before. But yeah, it does feel like kind of a cleanse for me to kind of get this off my chest. And I really, really appreciate you guys' comments and you listening to my voiceovers and offering some advice or just encouragement in general, because, you know, my mood fluctuates quite a bit. And as much as I feel super enthusiastic and like confident half the time, the other half the time I struggle with all these things that I'm sure are super familiar to all of you as well. Yeah, and thus concludes my session for today, I guess. So thanks so much for listening, you guys. And there's a couple of things I actually wanted to talk about that I did not get to touch on in this video, but I will in a future one. Some things I do in order to regulate my mood, but yeah, like I said, next video. So again, thank you all so much for your very kind comments and support, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.